Welcome, Board Game Soloists. Jay Allen Riker here. Today we are going to look at my 4 Against Darkness setup because I have a 4 Against Darkness unboxing that I wanted to show you guys, but I realized that I couldn't really explain to you how great what I am unboxing is unless I showed you how I play 4 Against Darkness. So, what we have here, you usually make a party of 4 characters. So you can see I color code them. That way I can color code their health trackers, and I track some other stuff because you see the number of wheels that these have sometimes. And then a few dice. Some of them, as they get up in levels, you can have ways to get multiple attacks. Rogues always can do an extra backstab attack if you outnumber the baddies, as long as they aren't a boss or a weird monster. So I'm using 8-sided, and then I typically have some extra just black and white die because you can get some crazy explosion chains when you roll a 7 or an 8 on a 8-sided die, or if you're using 6-sided die, which means you're under level 5. Then if you roll a 6, then you get to roll more dice. So I've got the 4 Against Darkness book here. As I mentioned, I actually purchased because, I didn't know how much I was going to love this game. And it was very early on in my gaming life. So I got this. I did not have my special black duct tape, which I think I probably posted a video showing you guys how I bind books now. Then 4 Against the Abyss. So it's kind of like Beckme in Dungeons and Dragons. So this would be basic, this would be expert, and then there are other levels it's 5 levels apiece, just like in Dungeons and Dragons. So it'd be BX for this, but 4 Against, they have they go farther now. Now what I found is because the monsters they started making the monsters scale, which I really like, but it reduces some of my some of my motivation to continue pushing through. I need to get books after. So 4 Against the Abyss, besides increasing the size of your dice and throwing in some harder stuff, especially because they weren't doing scalable combat, scalable monsters. They gave you harder, more difficult stuff to face in here, and also introduce madness. That's another thing you have to manage along with your health. And I'm not sure what the other books beyond this do that take you up to, I think maybe there are ones that take you all the way up to 20. So that would mean that there are 2 more core books, and I definitely should get those. There's really no excuse. But I haven't. A lot of times I hang out around level 5 or 6, which you can see here. So if you want to keep some of your characters, let's say somebody dies, or if you just want to swap out somebody, like try a different class, like Swashbuckler used to be pretty powerful because they can always attack with 2 weapons, but with a lower bonus on their offhand. Problem is that later on that was introduced as a skill, so this character became much less special and didn't have anything to offset the kind of weaker character it is. So I started out with a team. I think this is one of my original characters. You see, my naming convention to help me remember who's who is Paula, the paladin, Rebecca, the rogue, Penelope, the paladin, Clementine, the cleric, Sandra, the swashbuckler, Clarissa, the Cambion, which I believe is a kind of demon in 4 Against the Netherworld, which is one of my favorite books, but it's not part of my core setup. Anyway, so I've got my characters here. I can swap any of them in. Color coding is an issue, I guess, but it's never actually been an issue. So then you've got your table before we get to the table, let me show you the other books that I very regularly use. So, I like to get those PDFs. Other people buy the books. I like the PDFs. Well, here's one reason. You want to have access to a ton of different types of treasures without having all your books on the table. Here we go. And I even have them numbered so that I can roll for a number 4, 5, 6. So I roll to see which chart I look up treasure on. So I've got my ones from 4 Against Darkness, Fiendish Foes Magic, 4 against the Abyss. This is Abyss magic. Twisted Minions, Fortress of the Warlord. Same thing with spells, so I very rarely play spellcasters. I occasionally do. It's a nice simple system, so and because it's so gamified, I'll play that. I'll play a spellcaster. But how do you spice things up? Well, they all have a book of special events and special features. Now, I think this is an area where it's one of the very few areas where 4AD is lacking, in that there's not a lot that differentiates the different dungeon rooms. But this is something that you can do, but you're not going to be able to do it with just a couple of D6 tables. But I mean, you get enough of them. I've got 12 tables in here to roll on, so I roll 12 first, and then roll on these tables. And some of them have 6, some of them have 8. This one has 12. So that's cool. But let's say that you want the most bang for your buck. Okay, so you're going to get 4 against darkness, and you're going to start with that. You're not going to get 4 against the Abyss yet until you level up characters enough that you need it. Here's that 4 against Netherworld I was talking about, which has the best, and I think one of the only hex crawls, but it's in this hellish environment. So the hex types. I thought that would open to a hex type. Anyway, the hex types. Oh, here it is. Terrain. So Dust Sea, Windswept Plateau, Mountains, Caverns, Canyons, Chasm, Shrine, Stronghold, Quagmire of Distress. So you can see that this is a little bit hard to translate to a standard game. It works well. And I have actually done it where I mapped each of those to something else. It's a simple little system. Anyway, so 4 against darkness, then you're going to get Twisted Final Fights. Why? Because it has almost 50 special bosses. So in every dungeon, you're going to face off against vermin, which always have 1 hit die, minions, which always have 1 hit point, minions, which always have 1 hit point. So when you're rolling for multiple characters that have, if you roll a 4, you get 4 rats. You don't get a rat with 4 hit points, which makes them more dangerous. And also gives you that Diablo feel if you're really wiping things out. Then you're going to face off against bosses and weird monsters, which are essentially bosses, but very strange. But then at the end of the dungeon, once you have, you roll, and every time you fight against a boss monster, that number that you have to roll goes down to face the final boss of the dungeon. And this gives you a bunch of special ones that you can fight just one at a time, and you'll have like almost 50 games that are unique, where you're facing a unique challenge. They have special treasures also, and I like to take their weapons. So I haven't done Troublesome Towns yet, but in my, version of the game where I had a stronghold, but I mean, it was just a place to hold loot I wasn't carrying, I would take their weapons, so an enormous axe or a giant machete. So a white assassin, a skeletal avenger. So you roll that at the end. Unique boss types, 4 against darkness. Twisted Dungeons is the other one. So right now you've got 4AD, Twisted Final Fights, Twisted Dungeons. Twisted Dungeons is a D88 roll to find out what the theme of that dungeon is. So it twists the dungeon, it adds variant. Okay, so it starts right here. So Dungeons Aplenty. This is a standard dungeon crawl using the rules from 4 against darkness and room content tables. In this dungeon, however, there's a bigger chance to gain gold. Okay, cool. Let's see, Misery Crawl. Not all missions are dangerous. Not all foes are determined to kill our heroes. Not all coffers burst with gold coins. All monetary treasure found in this dungeon is halved. All monsters encountered have a -1 on their morale roll on top of their normal morale modifier. Okay, mercenaries. A warband of mercenaries has added their services in this dungeon. Roll on an appropriate minions table from any 4AD book you own to determine the nature of the minions. Each boss encounter in the game will be accompanied by D3 such minions. So then this gives you this big, how many does it have? So a D88, I believe, table, and I don't remember how many results that gives you, because it obviously no number can be higher than an 8, so you don't have 78, but then it goes to 81. Anyway, it gives you a ton of different twists to the dungeons with the rules for it. Like, you can put your own rules, obviously, your own themes onto any dungeon, but this is cool because it tells you exactly how to gamify it, which is what's great about 4AD. Twisted Hordes. One thing in 4AD is that there is not a lot of different equipment in the base game, even in a lot of the books. This gives you the extra stuff. Is all of it useful? No. And the thing is that special equipment can really throw off the balance of this game. Like a +1, a +2, makes a huge difference in this game. So you can't just keep scaling that stuff up. But this will give you like single use stuff. It will give you stuff that or limited use stuff. It will give you just weird stuff that's only useful in certain situations, but it's cool to get. Twisted minions, I almost don't use this. The minions, I like to roll through them really quickly. For me, because you wipe them out so quick, minions, the smaller vermin and minions, because they only have 1 hit point each, I actually didn't end up using this. But if I was going to say you have to have anything to get the most, these 3 books will take you so far, will give you so many unique and fun gameplays. By the way, this, I believe, is from the 4.8. I think you can find this. You might be able to find this on the Board Game Geeks page. You might. There's also some files that you can only find on the 4AD Facebook group, which is very active and a pretty cool place to hang out. So check out their files. They've got a ton of cool stuff. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. So for me, I record my adventures in something like this. So what you see here, these are the things that my characters aren't carrying, but have won and like keep in their hideout. Okay, and I've never gamified this, so it's not a guild situation where I'm paying some portion of my gold. It's not the Troublesome Towns, which came out only recently, where it sets up how you get your own place. It's just what I did as a holdover, completely abstracted. And then I go through, let's see these. So, okay. This is where I really started to get my system set up. So you are rolling for the room shape, and then you're going from room to room. I marked down kind of some of the more interesting things. So this had a twisted dungeon. It's ancient tomb. Each room has a 50% chance of containing a sarcophagus with an undead boss. And then I keep the monsters. I roll them up and I list them here. And so this gives me a really great, and everything that I find goes here on the course of the mission, and then it'll get transferred over to that front page. I keep track of my heals here, my bless here, my spells, my clues, and everything that I find. So as I use stuff up, because these otherwise will wear out really quickly on your character sheet, where you keep track of your praying, blessing, healing. Here's another one. And so it'll remind me that at like the halfway point, sometimes I'll put a tick mark there that says, okay, you need to roll for morale at that point. It helps me keep track of how many minions, because when you fight 10 minions, you get, I believe, that's when you get 1 X. I really need to review the rules, but you get an experience points every 10 minions. No matter how many vermin you face, you're not going to get any XP, and then you get 1 per boss or strange monster. Okay, but how do you get this stuff? Well, like, how do you get the flow? You could go through this flow chart. It's very, like, once you get used to it, it is very smooth. So you roll to see if it is a corridor or a room, and then you go down the correct side to see which each side has its own likelihood of encountering treasure, traps, vermin, minions. So you'll roll on the D6 minions table, you'll roll on the vermin table, you'll roll on the traps table, you'll roll on the treasure table, right? And you just go through that, and then you change rooms, and you roll up whatever your next room is going to be, right? Except I don't do that. So this is where my setup, and I think that this is not something which is utilized nearly enough. So one thing that 4 Against Darkness, one thing that they release is tarot-sized cards, and there are 2 different types that they've released, one of which I think is almost, for me, it is essential. I almost don't want to play without one of these types of cards. Okay, so the kind I'm not talking about are the monster cards, and they're cool, don't get me wrong. So this helps me in a push your luck way, which I'll get back to. So these are your vermin. And I've got 3 sets of these, and believe there are 5 sets available. These are your minions. These are your weird monsters, which essentially are bosses. And these are your bosses. Okay. So you can see you've got an orc brute. Now what this says is you take the highest level in your party and you add 4. And that gives you the level of this. And so it scales this stuff so that you can fight it at any level. Now that flattens things. But I love the fact that you don't bypass the ability to use certain materials anymore. But these are not the main ways. So this is not the main way I get my monsters. This is. These are the other type of card that they have created. They're adventure cards. So they each have a different theme. So you can see Lamentations of the Marsh Hag, Roads of Peril, Curse of Castle Ravenstein, Forest of the Spider Queen, The Stump of Elemental Evil. Now see how this one is, I will say, they updated it, and I don't have the updated one. It feels a little old-fashioned and slow. The rest of these are great. Each one has a different twist. You can play, each of them comes with its own final boss cards. Each one's with 2 of them. Each one comes with 2 specific fancy treasures. But what I actually do is I mix them all together, and then I go, okay, corridor. Which, oh well. Okay, I go it's a corridor, and I look at that. Okay, and then on corridor footprints, maybe search. See, if it had been a room, then you would look at this one, but it was a corridor. So footprints may be searched. So I search. You find a clue, a secret door, or a treasure. Okay, great. Now, I drew this is what the corridor looked like. And now this is a swamp, and so this does have slightly different rules. But you don't have to play it as a swamp. Like if you break it out and separate it and play it separately, that's how most people use these. But you can make a big stack of them, and then you don't have to do that. You can just use it as a corridor, despite the fancy drawing done around it. Okay, so then we pull again. And here we have done a room. Now this has a town, a settlement, which sometimes I'll use these inside of it like a mega dungeon, which is a lot of fun. And so I'll have towns inside the earth. Like I had the story where it was like no one could go above ground. Maybe above ground didn't even exist. I don't know. And in between each village would be a different type of dungeon. I'll show you that. I only played a few sessions in it, but I could print it off this paper with this tiny grid. And then you can see, so in blue, there was a certain effect, and then you went across, and there was a town where you could rest up. Usually, you would just ignore that, though, and you would just use it as a room that has 3 exits going off of it, 3 corridor exits going off of it. So let's see what happened. What we find in a room. Empty, can be searched. So then we search. Combat. Okay, what kind of combat do we see? D6 Flare Wisps. Level 4 minions, immune to fireball. If you defeat them, gain 1 flare token reactions. Yeah, so you've got these little fairy creatures, right? Now let's say that I really don't want to fight this. I look and I see it's a minion. And so instead, I'll say I can draw a minion card, but then I have to fight whatever this is. So it's a little bit of a push your luck thing is the way that I've worked out to use these. Okay, so you saw how fast that was. It's crazy fast. Okay, corridor. In this corridor, combat. Combat, Kilmulus Guardian, level 3 weird monster. So I read about this. And so this entire stack, so you see you'll have, through this stack, you'll find tons of traps, tons of specials, when you search a room, what you'll find, all these treasures, and a ton of monsters. So it's like dozens and dozens of different monsters. And then if I want, I can utilize one of these other monsters. Play is just... So this is I believe 4 sets. How many sets is it? This one is one of my favorites to play separately. Okay, so I have 5 sets, but I slacked off on getting them, and I've been thinking though about using 4AD as the basis for an actual solo RPG. Like typically what you do is you take a multiplayer RPG and you solo it with oracles. Well, I'm going to take a fully gamified RPG and add the RPG part of it. So add the role playing to the game, because that's what usually is lost when you completely gamify it, right? You kind of take out a lot of decisions, a lot of discussion, the soft stuff rather than the hard crunching. So, but because this is the core of my system, I decided it was finally time to get the last ones that I don't own. Now, there is another one I don't own that's pirates, but that's in the water and it has islands, and those ones you really can't use the rooms on them except for in that fashion it looks to me from what I've seen. But let's go ahead. So I wanted to show you guys these last 3 tarot decks. And if you decide to go this route, I would say get some sleeves. I don't like these sleeves. I'm going to unsleeve the monsters. Now, these are, I can't remember what the name of these are right now. They're way too heavy. Have decided I'm going to add some stats to. Now, these don't have stats. Any game that has stats, you can roll for the role-playing stuff that is not accounted for in the rules. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of the stat system. I know some games are statless. I don't think I've ever actually played a statless tabletop RPG game. Maybe I haven't. I don't know it. I don't remember it. But the thing about stats is they make it so that you can try anything in a gamified way, and you don't have to ask, the way that we play, you don't have to ask a game master's permission, because all you have to do is determine how difficult is the situation and what is the difficulty scaling system, and then what is the appropriate thing to roll on. So I'm going to add stats, but my gameplay is still going to be focused around like with the dungeon diving. It is going to be focused around these adventure cards. Okay, so let's take a look at the monsters that you get in the good, the bad, and the troll. So this is a Western. I don't even know how it works. Maybe we should look at that first. Okay. So this just tells you. This doesn't tell you any special rules. I believe that some of them do. Plays just like a regular 4AD dungeon. Several on the tables, draw cards using the content in the appropriate text boxes. So I showed you a demo of this, so there's not any reason to read that. So you've got 2 special pieces of treasure. The Black Hat Gang wand. Wand has 3 charges and allows the user to either cast fireball or lightning spells as a wizard of the user's level at +1 if the user is a wizard. Captain of the Watch's badge. You can see it's a sheriff's badge. When equipped, the badge shows shopkeepers your past exploits and you get a 10% discount. However, if equipped, all bosses and weird monsters level is +1 when attacking. Once equipped, it cannot be unequipped. Interesting. That doesn't sound like a good trade-off in general. I'm not going to be using that. So then you've got 2 boss monsters. One-Eyed Elven Bounty Hunter, Blackbone Lee. Like he's got a gravestone club. He's a wizened troll with no morals and a giant club. Okay, so this stuff is themed, though. It's going to be themed to the setting to some degree. But I've found that almost everything is generic enough that you don't have to worry about it too much. So, like, this trap is a sandstorm. That could be an issue if you are playing this and you draw that you're supposed to get a trap, and then you flip this card over and see sandstorm. How is a sandstorm going to happen in a dungeon? Okay, draw a second card is the answer to that. So the special is a surgeon, doctor wearing blood-splattered apron. Here we have a special, it's an undertaker. So abandoned and occupied. So it looks like that's something that's added here. So instead of corridor or room, you've got abandoned and occupied. So that does mess with things. So you would have to judge by looking at these, are these rooms or are they corridors? Because the next card that you draw probably is not going to be from the same set. They all are rooms. So you can just go for a room. And when you draw one of these as your result, you can decide which one is, they're color coded. So if you've got a corridor, then you go with the white option, which is abandoned. Some of these you do have to mentally do a little bit of work to play some of these. And this is one such. Oh, okay, here we go. I didn't look at the backside. The good, the bad, and the troll. So Alexi, look up Alexi's work. They have a lot of, so they've done all these sets, but they have other mapping card systems that are really cool. Levels, some of them are, I believe, system agnostic, so you can use it for something other than, but these you can use it. You don't have to be playing 4AD to use this to generate your dungeon. You can just encounter a monster and instead go to your monster, bestiary from whatever book you're playing. Yeah, it's not going to be balanced for that, but there are ways to redo that balancing. So good, the bad, and the troll. Levels any. Mission. In the Dust Bowl of On-Nur, you come across a small town named Liberty. Once a bustling dwarven mining town, it's been overtaken by the Black Hat Gang, halfling led by a fearsome troll. Clean up the town and try to make it through alive. Map out the town and play out each area and building, and it counts as one room in regards to movement, content, and encounters. Plenty of space. Marching orders is irrelevant across the entire adventure. Ranged attacks. You may use ranged weapons in normal combat rounds across the entire adventure. Modifiers. All characters equipped with ranged weapons or without heavy armor add plus 1/2 level to all saves. Can stack. Spellcasters add +1 to attacks. Rogues add level +1 to all traps. So I will probably, my tradition has been to play these separately as a just straight up game, use normal game of 4 Against Darkness before integrating it, into the stack and diluting it just to get the full experience. And then I'll mix it in. I don't do standard playthroughs on my channel. I have a patronage system. It's the top link in the, top solo games landing page. If you join that, then you will get a weekly exclusive weekly board game playthrough, which is how I will be playing these, not as solo RPGs, but just as the boardless board game. So you might want to do that. So you can see you've got these decks aren't huge. They cost, I believe, $8 a piece printed out, but each one of these is 6 different cards. You've got your room, and you've got these 5 different things that you can find in that room. So even though it's a slim stack, it does a huge amount of work. And when you put them all together, it provides basically infinite variety, especially when you mix it with twisted dungeons and twisted hordes, twisted minions, twisted final fights. Remember, I like twisted dungeons and twisted final fights the best. Okay, let's look at the next one. So this one I've been really wanting. It's Tomb Raiser. Okay. Levels 1 through 9. Mission. You find a tent next to a tomb, entrance in the desert. Inside the tent is a desert mage willing to sponsor you for your highest level times 100 gold. To venture into the tomb, reclaim the scaled canopic jar, defeating Lara Croc. No, it is Laura here. You may spend 3 clues to find her. So if you find 3 clues, you can find yourself, you can find the boss and put Khafra to rest. Dimensions. You start in this physical dimension of a dungeon called Sanctuary. All doors are impassable. Mark every explored room here with the cross symbol. When you find a room with sarcophagus, you may touch it to switch back and forth to the Abyss dimension. While in the Abyss, you can't leave the dungeon, but all other doors are open. Mark every room you visit with an O symbol. Dead end. You will find the sarcophagus, if you haven't already, in the last room of the Sanctuary explored. Okay, and the special treasure here is the Runed Lament. That looks like the Hellraiser box. A rune-covered puzzle cube that has a soft golden glow can be used in one of 2 ways. To summon a random weird monster from the abyss to fight on the hero's side until its death. That's powerful. Wow. It cannot be used again. So once it's used, it's single time, but boy, if you find yourself in trouble, this would be a super handy thing to have on you. Or it can be used to store the souls of 6 bosses or weird monsters. All bosses captured in the Runed Lament do not give XP, but once all 6 souls have been captured, gain a guaranteed success XP roll for 2 heroes. That's cool. Leveling is not my main thing. When I get a level, a lot of times I'll use to buy an advanced skill, or that's how I'm going to use the stats, is it gives you bonuses to your save rolls based off of, you can use your XP that you would use to gain level. Instead of gaining level, you get a 1 to physicality, 1 to dexterity, 1 to perception, 1 to intelligence, 1 to charisma. That's my thoughts on it so far. Scaled canopic jar. So this is what you're sent in for. A scaled canopic jar with the viscera of Khafra. If held in hero's offhand, it can be used 3 times to temporarily change into a were crocodile. A Lara Croc. A once famous grave robber, she tried to steal the scaled canopic jar and is forever cursed to be a bloodthirsty were crocodile, immune to sleep. Oh my gosh. I love the art. So, Alexi's art is killer. It's so good. Khafra's tortured soul split from his canopic jar. He yearns to gain it back and will kill anyone in his way. So this looks like a Cenobite from Hellraiser. So it makes that Runed Lament cube make more sense. Okay, so here we have our traditional corridor or room. The twist is if it's a sanctuary or if it's an abyss. It looks like. So a greater brazier, a monstrous iron stove, stands tall and may be used to burn out all the contents and creatures from the next abyss room you approach. Thing is that you don't often, and I found that you don't encounter specials often enough, for me, in order to really give a flavor to the rooms that you're going through. But you can, I don't know, you could give every room a 50% chance of having a special, regardless of anything else that it has. So here we have a room filled with 2d6 plus 4 monks of acute pain. So those sound like the Cenobites from Hellraiser. You can leave the entrance you came through without issue or sneak past an HCL plus 2 trap. If you fail to save, you must fight all monks. The trap is Screaming Bas Reliefs. Combat 2d6 Locust Plague. Here, combat Lara Croc. So this is the card that makes you find that boss. So then you would pull that special boss card from down here. This one sounds like a lot of fun. They're playing on both Tomb Raider and Hellraiser. Uh, so sounds very interesting. Okay, last one. This one, I was thinking I might be able to, and I'll have to see how it works out, combine with Castle Ravenstein to make a dungeon that feels like a, uh, castle crawl. Manic Mansions. Special rules, levels 1 through 9. Mission. A local noble hires you to brave his rival's wooden mansion to rid it of ghosts haunting its halls. Check every room on both 2 floors of the mansion and make sure nothing is afoot. Be discreet and get highest character level times 100 gold. Flammable environment. Use of fire during the mission is at a 2 in 6 chance of starting a fire. If a fire starts, your mission fails and you gain no XP or GP. And it's got so this has levels to it, which 4AD dungeons traditionally are flat. Okay, so Monkey's Paw. Use one use item. Sacrifice the Monkey's Paw to kill one boss or wandering monster instantly. However, the user immediately loses 1 level. The loss is permanent until the level is gained back with a successful XP roll. Monsters slain with this item give no XP. So, wow. If you are in big trouble and you're about to face like a total party kill, I think that's when you would use it, because losing a level, that's a harsh punishment, a harsh trade-off. Cursed Pouch. Cursed item cannot be discarded. Cursed Pouch attaches itself to the hero who picks it up. It stops all vermin and minions fleeing. Where fleeing would occur, vermin and minions fight to the death. In addition, all heroes suffer -1 on attack rolls versus vermin and minion, can be destroyed between adventures by using a resurrection spell. That's not fun. The Ghost of Mr. Donovan. The mansion's previous owner has returned to enact revenge on the noble for killing him and his family. Undead. Shambling Monster. A shambling corpse stitched together from multiple parts. Undead, bludgeoning weapons at -1, immune to sleep and mind-affecting spells. So those are your 2 bosses in the deck. Okay. So we have special secret lab. A lot of the times where you find the real flavor here is in the special and the traps. When it comes to like the rooms and the corridors, like the shapes don't matter. This isn't grid based. It's point, like it's like a point crawl, but there's a little bit of a puzzle, and it makes you feel like, I like mapping it out. I like drawing it more than I enjoyed drawing just a point crawl. I can understand why some people prefer to just have a circle and then connect them with lines that show the different doorways. I actually do enjoy the map creation. I like thinking about the way to place the rooms so that the doors work the best, things like that. But there's not a lot. There's not a lot that it actually adds. I think the specials and the traps add a lot of the flavor. So trap rotten wood. So this would work. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can have a rotten wooden floor in a dungeon. There might be just a wooden floor over a pit, a wooden trap door that doesn't get noticed, or a secret lab with alchemical equipment everywhere bubbling away. Furnished room. In the furnished room, you find a body and a stake through its heart. Pull the Ghost of Mr. Donovan. Trap hidden safe. Sneak at Chew, a trap. A random hero gets dust up their nose. Or failure, the hero sneezes and the party is surprised by a random monster attacking from the rear. Special Rumpus room. You find a dog's bed. Return to this room with 1 bone to gain a spectral dog animal companion. What? This is my favorite card of all time. Okay. So that's a cool one. How many of these do you need? I don't know. Like, I had enough with 5 sets, and now I like to play combined like this. Now I have 8 sets. I will play these separately first, so I will get that value out of them. But I think that this is the best way to play 4 Against Darkness. It's so fast. People already talk about how fast 4 Against Darkness is, and this just makes it lightning fast. Okay, so that was my unboxing. That is my 4 Against Darkness setup. I hope you enjoyed this video, this look into 4AD and a look into kind of the future of something that's going to have on the channel. Like, definitely some of my dungeons I'm going to be laying out with this. And I think that 4AD will work nicely as a solo RPG just by adding some stats to the characters to be able to make rolls for things like when you find something in the environment to use it in a way that doesn't have defined rules already set. So that's it from me for today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and keep playing solo.